Hey brothers, how's it going? JK Emezi here, founder of Elevated Recovery and head coach at Porn Reboots. Today I'm going to be responding in detail to a question a brother in one of our groups asked, and he'd asked me about what was the hardest part about ending your behavior with pornography. Years ago, I would happily jump on that and just pick one thing and share it because there's so many things that were hard at different points. So a more accurate question would be at each stage of your reboot, what did you find challenging? Instead, what I'm going to do today for you guys is I'm actually going to share three of the hardest aspects of rebooting. And each of these things, once I overcame them and I learned how to understand them, I created a principle around them. And this principle allowed me to move on to the next stage of my reboots. And it will do the same for you if you're taking this journey seriously. The first one was really just not beating myself up. And two principles came out of this. The first being a progress over perfection, and the second one being that slips are actually data. See, many of us make this mistake, and you might be making this mistake of connecting every slip and every relapse to yourself, that something is wrong with me. I am deficient. I am malfunctioning as a human being. I There must be something inherently wrong with me that is causing me not to be able to control this behavior. Understand, this is a compulsive behavior. You're supposed to slip, you're supposed to relapse. The big problem, my friend, is that anytime that you slip and relapse and blame yourself for it, your subconscious mind is constantly keeping track of your wins and losses. So it connects this to every aspect of your life, and it builds up your self-image and your self-esteem based on these wins and losses. So anytime that, let's say, you have a wonderful day, you crush it at work, you have a great time with your wife, you've been great with the kids, it's just been a really good day and you just love it. You're like, man, I crushed it this day. And then that little voice comes up and says, well, why don't you reward yourself, dude? You're such a great dad. You're such a great provider. You even had time to hit the gym. Reward yourself. And of course, you reward yourself with pornography. And what do you do next? The next thing you do is that you consider your day to be a complete loss. All those little wins are wiped away. The slate is wiped clean because of how you feel about this. You feel that you fucked up. And this is so dangerous because men spend their lives throwing away all the building blocks of their self esteem because each time that they make significant progress and they have a win, they they just take that failure, self-perceived failure from the slip and replace the day with it. And that's not the case. That's why we have a tool called the win wall in our program, which we basically use to train you. And it's designed to help you rewire your brain to actually focus on all the wonderful things that happened that day. There's so many little wins that happened. Why should you let a slip or a relapse wipe all of that away? Why is that the thing that should be on your mind first thing in the morning? You wake up in the morning and you go, oh, well, yeah, I had a great, oh, fuck it. Yeah, I woke up in the middle of the night. I had a lot of urges. I masturbated. I watched some porn. And therefore, you literally think about it. You forget about every win you ever experienced that day. That's a terrible loss because you go through life and you're building up this belief that I am a failure. So even though in reality you're not a failure, you're still able to function, you're still able to do well in your career, you just never get past a certain point because you don't have the momentum and the foundation to do so. So there are many things you could do in your life that you're now afraid of doing because you've built up this mindset that I'm going to fail anyway, just as I'm going to slip anyway. And it's a hopelessness that comes with many addictive behaviors, particularly behavioral addiction. So that was the first thing. That was not beating myself up. The second one was accepting the long game. All right. The long game simply means I needed to let go and many of you will learn this one way or the other. You'll learn it the hard way by being stubborn, or you'll uh, I don't know what to say. It's you'll accept the reality that we're on to something here at Porn Reboot, right? And it's simply that you're not going to rewire your brain in 90 days. You're not going to do it with No Nut November. It takes a while. There are many lessons to learn. I think we've done something great, and I'm proud of what we've done by putting together a system that helps men. But everybody's going to go through that system of rebooting and rewiring their brain in a different way. So there's so many lessons that you have to experience these lessons. It's not just about rewiring your brain. Um, you can't just stop viewing pornography but not deal with the other aspects of your life. You still have to fix your relationship. You still have to deal with your anxiety. You still have to fix any bad habits that you have. Any limiting beliefs still need to be overcome. So there's so many things, your relationships with other people. You have to work on those things. If you don't address them, they are always just hanging around waiting to sabotage your progress. And so once I accepted this, I was able to move forward. Now, I wasn't the one who learned that through my personal experience that it took a year and a half to 2 years to rewire your brain. That's how long it took for me. However, it wasn't until I started having clients, when I started having dozens of clients, and then when it started getting into the hundreds of clients, that I started to gather the data that showed that it took a year and a half to 2 years using our system to actually rewire your brain. So I'm thankful for that, that it doesn't take 5 years or 10 years, that it takes a year and a half to 2 years. I don't know about you guys. Maybe if you're younger, if you're a certain age, you might think 2 years is a long time. But really, to control this behavior, to rewire your brain, to regain a lot of the things that you've lost, and at least with the Porn Reboot system, we want you to thrive as well. We want you to be able to accomplish many other things in your life. I I don't think 2 years is a long time. So that was the second thing. It was just accepting the long game. And the final thing that was really, really, really challenging to let go of was this belief of willpower, that I could power through it. I could use willpower to end this behavior. And brothers, you guys already know this. You cannot do that. This was where the concept of working with your brain instead of against your brain came from, simply because your brain, the aspect of you that is addictive, the little voice in your head is you. It is as cunning, it is as smart as you are. So you cannot outwit it. Every time you go against it, eventually it is going to win. And so what you want to do is you want to learn the skill set. It's in some cases you could even call it an art form of working with your brain, of allowing your brain to just do its thing. An example would be going back to the concept of seeing slips as data. See, working against your brain would be pushing against it, using willpower, and then the moment that you slip or relapse, you just tell yourself, well, that's it. Like, I'm a failure. I don't have what it takes. Well, that's working against your brain because you're using willpower. Because you use willpower, you will always be stuck in the paradigm of slips mean that I have weak willpower. Me having weak willpower means that I am a person who is not worthy of accomplishing other things. And it has all these statements that come with it that imply low self esteem and contribute to that. That is working against your brain. What is working with your brain? Working with your brain is just accepting the fact that you're experiencing an urge, accepting the fact that you're probably going to slip a few times. That is absolutely fine because it allows you to have the clarity to observe the true nature of the actual slip. When you are using willpower to fight against it, you can observe it for a while, but eventually you're going to allow a negative emotion to come up, which is when you lose the battle against your willpower. And so it's so important, gentlemen, to work with your brain. Sure, you slipped. All right, whatever. It's data. What am I going to learn from this experience? Pick up the things that you learn from it. You're not going to learn anything when you use willpower. That's the reason why you barely make any progress. Think about it. All the guys who are doing the whole no fap thing, using other willpower based methods, why is it that they just, there's nobody inspiring there? There's nothing is moving forward in their life. It's not because what they're doing is wrong. It makes sense, right? They're just not thinking deeply enough. It makes sense, but it's it's not effective. You don't learn anything from it. That's the biggest problem. There's nothing to learn when you use willpower. It's just you hitting your head against a wall. Just let it be. Just sit, and you will notice that there is a voice in your head, that there are emotions, there are things which are happening, which you can observe. You work with your brain. You don't fight the urge. You let the urge pass through you. I don't mean to get woo woo about it. It makes a lot more sense for brothers who are in the program where we actually use tools to break this down. But letting go of willpower was one of the best things that I did for myself. It allowed me to not beat myself up about the slips. It allowed me to trust myself more, not just as a man who was rebooting, but it allowed me to trust myself in other aspects of my life. I began to learn the parts of life where willpower would help me and the parts where I just needed to step back a little bit because the process of using willpower was, interestingly enough, leading to a lot of stress, which would lead me to relapse eventually. And so letting go of that really, really helped. Now, you might be wondering, well, what are some things that can help me let go of that? Meditation is one thing that can help, mindfulness meditation, and also practicing, implementing some aspects of different therapeutic modalities. One of them being rational emotive behavioral therapy, REBT. So if you can find a good therapist who practices rational emotive behavioral therapy, or if you can start studying it on your own, that's really something that would help you. So that is my long answer to a very simple question. Not beating myself up was, again, that was one of the hardest things to get over. That held me back a lot. Accepting the long game and letting go of willpower. Brothers, I hope you found that helpful. I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. It's super late here. I should be getting ready for my night routine. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this video. I appreciate you guys, and I'll speak to you later on.